Once upon a moonless night, in a remote corner of the world, a group of intrepid travelers set out on a journey that would forever haunt their souls. The year was, and the destination was a forsaken village known as Blackthorn Hollow, nestled deep within the shadowy embrace of the Appalachian Mountains. It was a place whispered about in hushed tones, a place shrouded in legends of the macabre and the inexplicable. The travelers, 5 in total, came from disparate backgrounds, drawn together by an insatiable curiosity for the supernatural. There was Samuel, a seasoned paranormal investigator, with a mop of unruly hair and a weathered face that bore witness to countless horrors. His reputation preceded him, having faced malevolent spirits and vengeful specters across the globe. Beside him was Emily, a skeptical journalist with a penchant for uncovering the truth. She had been assigned to chronicle their journey, hoping to debunk the myths surrounding Blackthorn Hollow. Her sharp wit and logical mind served as a counterbalance to the growing unease that hung in the air. The trio of brothers Benjamin, Michael, and Thomas hailed from a long line of occult enthusiasts, their family's obsession with the supernatural dating back generations. Armed with an array of arcane knowledge and a cache of ancient artifacts, they joined the expedition as experts in the occult, eager to test the boundaries of their craft. As the travelers ventured deeper into the heart of the Appalachian wilderness, the forests grew denser, and the air grew heavier with an oppressive sense of foreboding. The path ahead twisted and turned like a serpentine nightmare, leading them ever closer to their destination. Blackthorn Hollow, it was said, had been cursed for centuries. Its history was a dark tapestry woven with tales of witch trials, demonic pacts, and an ancient, malevolent force that had laid waste to all who had dared to tread upon its cursed soil. The village had been abandoned for generations, and those who had once dwelled there had vanished without a trace. As the travelers approached the outskirts of Blackthorn Hollow, they encountered a gnarled, dead tree, its branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. On its bark, strange symbols were etched, symbols that seemed to writhe and shift as though alive. It was a clear warning, a sign that they had entered a realm where the boundaries between the living and the dead were blurred. The village itself appeared frozen in time, as if the very essence of life had been sucked from it. Rotting wooden houses with shattered windows lined the streets, and the air was thick with an otherworldly silence. No birds chirped, no wind whispered, only the travelers' footsteps echoed in the desolation. As night fell, the group took shelter in the decaying remains of the village inn, a place once bustling with life and laughter. Samuel set up his equipment to capture any spectral evidence, while Emily scribbled furiously in her journal, recounting every chilling detail. The brothers, invoking ancient incantations, attempted to commune with the spirits that lingered in the shadows. It was then that the travelers realized they were not alone. Flickering apparitions of long-dead villagers, their faces twisted in agony, began to materialize before their very eyes. Unearthly whispers filled the air, a cacophony of torment and despair. The spirits were not content with merely manifesting. They unleashed a barrage of malevolent attacks, flinging objects through the air, shattering windows, and slamming doors shut with an otherworldly force. Samuel's equipment recorded chilling yips of voices from the beyond, uttering dire warnings and cryptic prophecies. Emily's skepticism began to crumble as she witnessed the horrors unfolding around her. The brothers' incantations grew desperate, their faces pale with terror as they realized the ancient force they had awakened was far more potent than they had ever imagined. As the night wore on, the travelers found themselves trapped in a nightmarish purgatory, with no escape from the relentless onslaught of vengeful spirits. The very fabric of reality seemed to unravel, and time lost all meaning. Shadows danced and writhed, and the air grew thick with a palpable malevolence. In their darkest hour, the travelers huddled together, their faces etched with terror. Samuel, a man who had faced countless horrors, knew they were teetering on the brink of oblivion. With grim determination, he devised a desperate plan, one that involved confronting the ancient evil head-on. The travelers, armed with incense, protective wards, and their unwavering resolve, ventured deep into the heart of Blackthorn Hollow. There, in a desecrated church that had once been a place of solace, they faced the malevolent force that had plagued the village for centuries. What transpired in that accursed church is a tale too harrowing to recount in its entirety. Suffice it to say, the battle between the living and the dead raged with a ferocity that defied mortal comprehension. It was a battle not just for survival but for the very souls of the travelers, their fates entwined with the dark history of Blackthorn Hollow. In the end, through sheer determination and a sacrifice that would haunt their dreams for the rest of their days, the travelers managed to bind the ancient evil and restore a semblance of peace to Blackthorn Hollow. But the scars, both physical and spiritual, would linger for a lifetime. They emerged from the cursed village forever changed, their lives irrevocably intertwined with the malevolent force they had encountered. The journey had exacted a terrible toll, leaving them with a chilling understanding that some mysteries of the universe should never be explored, and some places are best left undisturbed. And so the legend of Blackthorn Hollow persisted, a cautionary tale whispered around campfires and in the dimly lit corners of the world. A tale of a journey into darkness, where the line between the living and the dead blurred, and the price of curiosity was paid in blood and terror. The wind howled like a banshee as I stood at the edge of the desolate train station, the only living soul in sight. It was a place that time seemed to have forgotten, nestled deep in the heart of a dense ancient forest. The trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, casting eerie, shifting shadows on the rusted train tracks that led to nowhere. I had embarked on this ill-fated journey after hearing whispers of mysterious destination hidden in the depths of this forsaken forest. The locals had warned me, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty, but my curiosity had pushed me forward, compelling me to uncover the truth behind the legends. The train arrived with a screech of metal against metal, its once vibrant colors faded to a sickly gray. It was like a relic from a bygone era, an unsettling relic that sent shivers down my spine. As I stepped aboard, the doors clanged shut behind me, sealing my fate. The journey had begun. The inside of the train was just as eerie as the station, with dim, flickering lights that cast eerie, dancing shadows on the cracked leather seats. The air was heavy with a strange, musty odor, and the windows were obscured by a thick layer of grime, preventing me from seeing the world outside. I was the only passenger on this ghostly train, or so I thought. As the train rattled and creaked along the tracks, I began to hear faint whispers, voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. They spoke in a language I couldn't understand, their words a haunting, discordant chorus that sent a chill through my bones. Time seemed to warp and twist as the train continued its relentless journey through the forest. Hours turned into days, and days into weeks, or so it seemed. I lost all sense of time and reality, my mind trapped in a nightmarish limbo. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the train screeched to a halt. I stumbled out onto a platform that seemed to float in the midst of an inky abyss. The darkness was absolute, and the only light came from a blood-red moon that hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the surreal landscape. As I ventured further into this desolate place, I began to see nightmarish creatures lurking in the shadows, grotesque, otherworldly beings with twisted forms and malevolent eyes. They moved silently, watching me with a hunger that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to run, but my footsteps echoed loudly in the oppressive silence, drawing the attention of the creatures. They closed in, their grotesque forms closing in around me. I could feel their icy breath on my skin, and their bony fingers reaching out to touch me. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost, a blinding light erupted from the ground, engulfing me in a searing, white-hot fire. They were consumed by the light. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the light vanished, leaving me standing alone in the darkness once more. I stumbled back to the train station, my mind shattered by the horrors I had witnessed. The train was gone, and the forest had returned to its eerie, silent stillness. I had survived, but at what cost? To this day, I cannot forget the terror I experienced on that ill-fated journey. the forest and its secrets remained shrouded in darkness. Voice synthesis performed by Yandex Cloud Speech Ticket. Place where nightmares come to life, and the boundaries between reality and the supernatural blur. I can only hope that my story serves as a warning to those who dare to venture into the unknown, for there are some mysteries that are best left undiscovered. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the desolate stretch of highway, Sarah and Mark found themselves driving through an unfamiliar and eerie landscape. They had taken a detour to avoid a traffic jam on the main road, and now they were surrounded by dense woods that seemed to swallow the road whole. Their GPS signal had been lost for miles, leaving them with no choice but to continue down this narrow, winding road. The only source of light was their dim headlights, which barely penetrated the darkness ahead. Sarah's unease grew with every passing mile. The road seemed to stretch on forever, with no signs of civilization in sight. She glanced at Mark, who was gripping the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white with tension. "We should have never taken this shortcut," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. Mark nodded, his eyes fixed on the road. "I know, but we can't turn back now. There's no place to turn around." As they continued to drive, the air inside the car grew colder, and a thick fog began to roll in, obscuring their vision even further. The oppressive silence was broken only by the occasional hoot of an owl in the distance. Suddenly, Mark slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to a screeching halt. In the middle of the road, illuminated by their headlights, was a child's tricycle, its rusted frame and tattered wheels a stark contrast to the surrounding darkness. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as they stared at the ominous sight. "What kind of place is this?" she muttered. Mark put the car in reverse, intending to turn around and find another route, but the engine sputtered and died. Panic set in as he tried to restart it, but the car remained lifeless. "We need to get out of here," Sarah said, her voice trembling. They got out of the car and, with their flashlight in hand, cautiously approached the tricycle. It stood there alone, a chilling reminder of the unknown horrors that lurked in the darkness. As they turned to head back to the car, they heard the faint laughter of a child echoing through the woods, sending shivers down their spines. They swung their flashlight around but saw nothing. The laughter grew louder, closer, and more disturbing. In a state of sheer terror, they ran back to the car, pounding on the doors to be let in. But the doors remained locked and the windows fogged up, obscuring their view of the outside world. The child's laughter grew louder, more sinister, and then the tricycle started to move on its own, rolling towards them with an eerie creaking sound. Sarah and Mark screamed, pounding on the windows, but the car refused to start. The tricycle drew closer, and in the dim glow of the foggy windows, they saw the pale face of a child, eyes hollow and black, grinning at them from the darkness. The tricycle crashed into the car, and everything went black. The next morning, a search party found the abandoned car deep in the woods, its engine dead, and its occupants vanished without a trace. To this day, the story of Sarah and Mark's terrifying journey down that haunted road serves as a warning to all who dare to take the shortcut through the woods, for it is said that once you enter, you may never return. As the train rattled through the desolate countryside, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The other passengers appeared oblivious, lost in their own worlds, but I couldn't ignore the eerie silence that had enveloped the entire carriage. I decided to get up and explore, hoping to find an explanation for this unsettling quiet. The train's narrow corridor was dimly lit, and my footsteps echoed ominously as I moved further into the darkness. A chill ran down my spine as I reached the last carriage, and there I discovered the source of the dread. The conductor's compartment was empty, the door ajar, and his cap lay discarded on the floor. Panic gnawed at my chest as I rushed back to my seat, frantically searching for my phone. But the device had no signal, and my fellow passengers remained oddly indifferent to my growing distress. As the train hurtled onward, the windows transformed into twisted, nightmarish scenes. Distorted figures pressed against the glass, their faces contorted in agony. Desperate cries filled the air, yet no one else seemed to hear them. Suddenly, the train screeched to a halt, throwing us forward. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows. I dared to look outside, only to find a decrepit station surrounded by overgrown trees. The platform was empty save for a figure standing at the edge, their back turned to me. A guttural whisper echoed through the carriage, sending shivers down my spine. "You shouldn't have come here." I turned to see my fellow passengers, their eyes vacant, mouths agape, repeating the same sinister warning. I knew then that I was trapped, a prisoner of this haunted train, hurtling into the abyss with no hope of escape.